This is Big Girl Pants Podcast,
where we talk about women, health, power, and wealth.
hosted by
April Melton.
and Kimberly Shapiro.
We are real women with real jobs doing real life.
Join us while we showcase inspirational stories and inspirational people.
Come on, y'all. Put your big girl pants on and stay tuned.
Hi. Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
So we're back.
Back again.
Oh, again?
Yeah.
Howdy.
Yelling in the
We have
microphone.
a guest with us too.
Yeah.
Miss Catherine.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Actually,
Yeah.
welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah, so we're going to tell a story.
Yep.
This is what happened. So last October-ish, September, October, we actually had Catherine on as a guest. And we never posted it until she sent an email. I think it was like, period. We never posted it, period. She sent an email inquiring.
Hey.
And I even think I forgot to respond to that, if I remember.
Yeah.
So
Shapiro's making us look really good
I
right
know.
now.
I
And you
tattled
guys-
on your mom is what happened. I talked to your mom about it.
Oh, good. Well, this is not, I promise everyone, this is not normal.
No.
This has happened to two people only
Yes.
in 100 guests.
I think this is 102 or 3.
Yeah. So it's happened 2 times in 3 years. And just sincerest apologies. The fact that you're even gracing us with your presence and allowing us to hear your story again.
Speaks volumes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we actually were going to post that interview, but now that we have this really sexy, awesome studio, I thought,
Love it.
because this was back in COVID times when everything was Zoom.
Yeah.
Well, that isn't as much fun as this,
Right.
So we've got her back.
Yes,
and
in
we're
studio.
so excited.
In person, which is even better.
Yeah,
So much
first
better.
time meeting in person since we did Zoom last time. And
Yeah.
I appreciate it because I totally understand being an entrepreneur, how crazy and up and down and roller coaster
Yeah.
things can be. And you guys are side hustling this podcast so well.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed listening to it personally. So I'm understand completely and happy to be back. And
Well, we're happy you're here.
yeah, thank
Yes.
you.
So tell everybody a little, just your business and what you do, like a quick little bio, and then we'll dive into the details.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a founder of a business called Design Life Project. So it's a health coaching company where I help people that really understand how to eat wisely and live in a way that they're designing their best life. So it's so much more than just food. Calories in, calories out, exercise, but really getting the mindset piece of the puzzle right, getting the environment that you live around in right, so that you can actually live out these habits long term, as opposed to feeling like you're caught in that diet wheel. So in addition to that, I am a certified trainer right now, coaching at Orange Theory, but by the time this is posted, I will probably no longer be there because I'm going to be moving to remote work full time and working on a trailer, but it'll be Airbnb for a while, living around, just kind of exploring and continuing to grow my business online.
That's
Good
amazing.
for you.
What made you make that decision?
To go remote?
Yeah.
Well, I am a very family-oriented individual, and in the next 4 weeks, there will be no family left in Texas. And so
Wow.
the family is moving to Ohio, and the rest of my family is either in Thailand or Canada. So it kind of opens up. No offense, Ohio people. I know it's a great place, but I just can't see myself there. So I've got to figure out where to go next.
Yeah.
And so I figured the best way to do that was to bounce around for a little while.
Yeah.
I have always loved to travel. Obviously, with COVID, that's been harder to do, so local travel is the way to go. And I am super fascinated with longevity science and happiness science, which is actually a real thing. And there are places in the U.S. that have like super high happiness index.
Oh,
and I
please
want
do
to
tell
live
us where those places
in
are.
those cities. So the 2 on my list right now are Charlottesville, Virginia, and Asheville, North Carolina. So they're ranked almost twice as high in the happiness index as Dallas. And so I'm super excited to go to some of these places. And the happiness index really is based on walkability, on like access to community and cultural events, weather. Sometimes they find that people in the warmer areas, there's a lot of high happiness in Florida.
Yeah.
So might bounce around there too. But I just find it fascinating that you can actually rank happiness. And so some of the cities on my list are high in happiness index factor, and I want to go check them out and see if that's where I actually want to permanently land.
And it sounds like it's a little bit bittersweet. Like having your family move away is probably very difficult, but it's kind of ripping that Band-Aid off and forcing you to go do these things that you otherwise might not do.
Yes, I saw a quote and it was like, sometimes it takes 10 years for the 1 year that'll change your life. And that's what 2021 feels like for me.
Wow, I love that.
Me too.
Yeah, girl.
That's so cool.
It's a good and bad, right?
I'm like super intrigued by the happiness ranking and stuff like that. I'm like, because if you think about it, like areas like Seattle or Portland, like they're super rainy and very drab. The weather's super drab, but I don't know how closely that correlates with like suicide rates and depression, but like I know personally living in Texas, if it's not sunny, I'm miserable. And like I just love being outside and when the weather's nice, even if I'm stuck in the office. Yeah. Even if I'm stuck in the office, I'm like, oh my God, it's so sunny.
Yes,
sunny.
vitamin D is your best friend in the winter and the rainy weathers because trying to keep that energy level up and your mood up. I am one of those very, very impacted by the weather. So yesterday we had some gloomy day. And I called my best friend. I was like, I don't know what's up with me, but I'm in a mood today. And she's like, it's the weather. Oh, yeah, okay.
My husband is like that. He is grumpy literally from November to February.
And then he's happy.
And summertime, he's like magic. He's living his best life.
Yep,
it's amazing.
100%.
Yeah, but I mean, the winter months really affect him. And I even say sometimes you need to go. I know it's not good to get in a tanning bed.
Whatever, man. Sometimes that 10 minutes or something
is 5-10 minutes just to kind of give you the feel of the
warmth and the warmth on your skin.
So you understand why Canada and Ohio are not on my list.
Yes, definitely.
So I used to live in North Dakota too. Miserable.
Beautiful, I'm sure, though.
I want to talk a little bit more about your business and breaking it down and what, like, maybe your ideal client or target is, and then what it is that you actually do for those people. Because her and I mean, everybody in general, anybody that is health conscious and gives a two craps about their diet, like they know the struggle and the cycle, right? Cyclical, like you go on a diet and then you fail and then you feel like a failure and then you go on another diet and then you fail, you feel like a failure, like all those things.
Yeah, and that's 100% why Design Life is what it is. And I'll pull it way back in my own struggles. It was in my 20s. I was working for a consulting company, one of the largest in the world. I was traveling Monday through Thursday on an airplane, living in a hotel, work hard, play hard. 60 hours was a light week. And I had no life outside of work. And my health was suffering from it. And because I was in my 20s, I somehow just powered through it. But it was at the sacrifice of my health. I was not sleeping because I was living on airplanes. Once I actually hit a bed, I couldn't figure out how to sleep for my life. I had migraines twice a week. I had PC powder in my car so I could just pop it right under my tongue all the time. Neck injuries from car wrecks that I didn't properly take care of. I couldn't quite get a handle on. That was at a chiropractor constantly. And I was like falling asleep in the stall at work. Like at 2:00, after lunch, I'd go to the bathroom and I'm like, can I just sleep right here? No. I don't think I ever actually fell asleep, but man, I was that tired that I could just sleep in the middle of the workday. And I was 22, 24. That's unacceptable.
That's crazy.
And it's just a little bit of that burning the candle at both ends lifestyle. And then my father was diagnosed with cancer. He had prostate and bladder cancer. And he's great now. He's healthier now than he was 10 years ago when this story started. But it was my wake-up call because I was doing what he was doing, that corporate life, like chasing after that career path at the expense of my health. And I feel like for him to get sick was like my aha moment of like, you're headed that way, girl, if you don't do something differently.
Yeah, you're not far from it.
Yeah. So I think blessing in disguise, he was in Asia on an assignment at the time, and he did his treatments there. And here they want chemo and surgery was what the recommendation was. And so he did the surgery, but then went over to Asia to continue his treatments. And they put him on fruits, vegetables, exercise, stress reduction, and medicine. So medicine wasn't not a part of it, but there was so much more around it.
Holistic approach.
Right.
That was my wake-up call. Like when we do weight loss and we look in, I remember flipping through, tearing out a magazine, like women's health magazines, and like trying to follow the workout plan or follow the diet that was the fad that time. That's so narrow-minded. It's so narrow-minded. And we're not focusing on that big picture of like, what is the environment around you, either leading you towards disease or leading you towards health? And how are you eating for life so that you can run around with your kids? I always say I want to do handstands when I'm 100. Like that's the life goal.
Me too.
And when you have handstands when you're 100 as your life goal, you make really big different decisions than if I just want to be a size 4 in 30 days.
Right. I agree with that.
Insanity.
I tell everyone I would love to be 105. I really do. And I mean it, and I'm going to.
Yep.
But it does impact the decisions that you make. You're not making them because you want to lose weight. You're making them because you want to live a long, healthy life.
100%. So that's where the Design Life program was built from. It's getting into that more positive experience and enjoying the journey and knowing where you're going. I find that a lot of people, they're so focused on a carrot. And I remember this in corporate. When I was in corporate wanting to leave my job to do this full time, I was like, well, once I have $50,000 saved, I'll quit my day job and I'll do this full time. And then 50 turned into 70, and then 70 turned into 80, and 80 turned into, like, there was never enough money to make me brave enough to leave the comfort and go do what I was passionate about. That's the same thing with your weight loss. Like, when I hit 150 pounds, I'm going to be happy.
You'll never be happy.
Then it has to be 140 pounds, and then it has to be 130
pounds. It's always
pounds.
destination happiness. Like, you're always chasing some
Carrot.
invisible goal. It's carrot. You're dangling the carrot in front of yourself.
Yeah.
It's such
And the
a
fact that
negative
it's
experience.
You'll never get there.
It's such a negative experience, and it makes me so sad because I watch it at the gym, being in group fitness for the last 4 years, watching these women just never satisfied with their results. And it gets to a point where you have to realize that's something on the inside happening.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what we start with Design Life. I have 4 pillars that I teach, but instead of starting with exercise or eating, we start with mindset.
Yeah.
And there's 2 pieces of the mindset. It's like recognizing your values and your purpose and why you wake up in the morning and who you wake up for, and breaking away from the noise of anybody else telling you what you should or should not be, but knowing who your inner circle is and what you're about and waking up for them and for you only. And then it's also having a positive mindset towards eating habits and your body and what you look in the mirror, and learning to pay attention and being aware of that negative Nancy between your 2 ears. So that has got to come first. And I feel like that is where the fitness industry and the nutrition industry has failed so many women.
I agree.
One, it's hard to do the hard work. And so we don't do it. It's so much easier to be given do step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then you'll be your body weight type that you want to be. And that's such BS. Like, you can't have a prescribed step-by-step process.
We're not all the same.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember, just completely not nutrition related, but like when I went through a really bad breakup, I remember going to a counselor and being like, just tell me how to get over this. Like, tell me what to do to not feel like this anymore. And she's like, there's no steps.
Right.
There's no steps.
I was about to say, I hope the counselor was good. And she was like, man, there's not.
But my type A achiever was like, if you give me steps, I will work the steps perfectly.
But I will do the steps, and I can do the steps, and I will ace the steps.
Yes, I will ace the steps, and I'll still feel crummy.
Because I will suppress it, but I did the steps. So I'm supposed to be better.
100%. So we've got to address the whole person. So renewing your mind is really the first piece of the puzzle. And then the second piece is a build on renewing your mind. It's community. Because I think group fitness is amazing, but the reason group fitness is amazing is because of the people around you.
100%.
Not because the workout's better than doing it on your own.
Nope.
You pay a crazy amount of money for that gym membership because your people are there. Because you're inspired by the person to the left and the right of you. That's community.
And they drive you. They motivate you to do better.
Whether they know they're motivating you or not.
Exactly.
And I think that's such an amazing thing. And that's why I have been a trainer for, almost 10 years, but I stopped with one-on-one training and I only do group because I think it's just so much more long-term impactful for results. And so community is such an important piece of the puzzle. When you talk longevity science, every place in the world where the most
zones.
Centurions live, the blue zones, they all have some sort of community.
It's
So
all about
true.
it's
Ikigai. Have you guys read that book?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like full spectrum, right? Because it's not just about what it is that you can achieve. It's about what it is that you can achieve with the help of also your community. It's like the same thing as they say, it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a grown-up too.
It takes a village to live a healthy lifestyle. And the truth is, let's say if your best friend or the people you spend time with are smokers, you're 50% more likely to be a smoker.
100%. Yeah.
If your closest friends are overweight, you're 50% more likely to be overweight.
We're just talking about this. You are like the 5 people that you surround yourself with, so level up.
That's what community is all about. And that doesn't mean stop spending time with those people that aren't where you're at. It just means add in those positive relationships that are going to inspire you to be better.
Yes.
So we really, with COVID, that's such an important piece of the puzzle, is finding that community. So many people are isolated right now. And I think they're saying the average weight gain is like 7 pounds or something amongst women in America over this last year.
I'm surprised that it's only 7.
I'm surprised too.
Yeah, I gained 10.
Maybe 7 is just what I gained.
I gained 10.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm down 6 now, but I gained 10.
Yeah. 100%. And so with COVID, I think it's even more important that we readdress. And it's actually an opportunity to readdress how you want to show up in the world again.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you just kind of get swept away with it and you don't even look to the left and right of you and realize if you're following people that are going where you want to go.
Yeah.
Well, now coming back into the world almost a year later, we have that opportunity to assess
Reevaluate.
if the people that we are spending time with are the people that are going to help us live a healthy lifestyle or bring us
Or hold
down.
us back.
Yeah, bring us down. And I'm not saying don't hang out with unhealthy people, but you do want to spend more time with healthy people.
Yes.
So how do you fill the gaps with those people that you want to be like?
You just have to be more selective.
So once you get Renew Your Mind in community, then we can start talking about eating wisely. And eating wisely for me is a very plant-strong diet, not 100% plant-based. I don't think that's right for everybody. But I know when my father was diagnosed with cancer, plant-based nutrition was a huge part of getting the inflammatory foods into his body so his body could heal from the inside out and getting his gut health better as well. And so we teach about how can you add more plants. And everything we teach about during Eat Wisely is like positive. How can you add this? How can you do more of
As
this?
opposed to taking away.
Yes.
Yeah.
As opposed to focusing on what you're not getting, you focus on what you can have.
Yeah, so we focus on more of a positive perspective. There's not like calorie counting and restricting and things like that, but we are going to focus on how do you add more good.
Yeah.
And then the last piece of the puzzle, the fourth, is movement. So moving more. And again, it's more than just that hour you spend at the gym. Because like, if you think about our grandparents, they didn't have gym memberships, but they had a more healthy BMI than we have now.
Yeah. Yes.
Why is that?
Yeah.
They moved more throughout their entire day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're a crazy busy mom that can't get to the gym for an hour because an hour actually is 2 when you get there, do your hair, shower, all that other stuff. But can you move more throughout your day?
Right.
Sure. Let's
Yes.
find ways to do that.
Yeah.
Take the stairs instead of the elevator,
Yeah.
things like that.
Right.
So move more is very much about more of your environment and getting more movement throughout your environment as opposed to necessarily working harder at the gym.
Yeah.
I love that.
Me too.
I want to talk about the first pillar, which is happiness. Is that right?
Yeah,
Or the
renew your mind, yeah.
Renew your mind. I really think people feel like happiness is an emotion. I don't think it is. I think it's a habit. I think you really train yourself.
I like that.
I think it's a choice.
It's a choice. I think you can actually, you wake up every morning and you have a choice to feel like, oh crap, I got to go to work today.
100%.
Hit the snooze button. God, it's another damn day. Or you can wake up and immediately feel grateful for the fact that you were allowed to wake up again.
Yep.
You take another breath. You're like, this is amazing. I'm going to go live my best day in my best life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it really starts from gratitude. I think that's where it's all centered. Just being grateful for what you have, where you are, and the life that you're living instead of poking at all the things that you don't like.
And I mean, I will say that that's for sure a choice that you get to wake up and be happy. But I think the struggle for some people is that they really are in a really crappy situation.
Yes.
And the same thing, especially for COVID, like you don't get to hang out with the people that you value the most. Maybe not Texas. I mean, let's be real. We've been kind of a rebel and a renegade in this whole process, but like you don't get to see the people that you love every day. Maybe some people are overly cautious about COVID, or you're in a really crappy situation. You got laid off and you don't have any money, or you can't afford your gym membership anymore, or anything like that. It's 100% a choice. I think that there's something to be said for current situations and for people who are just in really crappy environments, but it's definitely a choice.
I agree with that. And it's definitely, everyone has their own situation and their challenges that they're dealing with. There is a movie and a book about a real life scenario, and I cannot remember this guy's name. He was an evangelist late in life, but this was back in like World War I time frame, I believe, or World War II time frame. He was also an Olympian runner. Do you guys know who I'm talking about?
Keep going.
I can't remember the name of this guy, but anyway, long story short, he winds up, after he's in the Olympics, he winds up joining the military, and he is out to sea. I think they have a ship. It doesn't sink, but it's captured, whatever. And they wind up in a Japanese POW camp.
Yeah.
And he's surrounded by, a lot of his buddies from his, what do you call it when you're in a platoon, whatever. Yep. And when he writes his book at the age of like 70, 80, he says the reason and they were beaten, they were tormented, tortured, starved. It was I mean, when we're talking about our situation, come on, that's about as grim as it could possibly get. I mean, they're eating food that has maggots. I mean, it can't get worse. My point is, he writes this book in the 70s, 80s and says the reason that he survived and lived when a lot of his platoon members didn't was his mindset.
Yeah.
He was able to wake up every day and say, thank you, God, for letting me be alive. Thank you for another opportunity to make it back home.
Yeah.
So I really still believe, even when your circumstances are grim or even when they're negative, it's still
your choice.
Our choice to see and find the good, because there is always good. We just have to peel the layers back and find it.
Totally.
Pay attention to it.
Yeah. And 100% it takes practice. Because I think I was so much more like where you were
I call it a habit.
Kimberly, where it's like, I just need to be happy. Like, why am I not happy? Gosh, now I'm beating myself up for not being happy. What was happening to me, it was I was in corporate America, I was working that consulting job, and it was a great job for all the reasons on paper I should be happy.
Right.
But I was out of alignment.
Yeah.
I was out of alignment, not doing what I was called to do for whatever variety of reasons, too afraid to step into that arena. And so because of my out of alignment, I was not capable of maintaining a happiness. And so that was a big aha moment for me, is like, I got to be true to myself if I want to be happy.
Yeah.
And so whether it's something that's out of your control, or for me, that was something I could control. I was just too dang scared to make that step. You can control what you can control to walk that path. And then I do think that a habit is a consistent small behaviors every day that lead into something big.
Yes.
And so one of the big concepts that we teach in my program is called the consistency chain. And I totally stole that. That's not my idea, but it's a simple, small, enjoyable, doable habits that you can do every day. Little by little by little. So instead of feeling like I can't have that piece of cake, I can't do this. What
can you do?
What can you do to be healthier today? What can you do to be happier today? And it might be something so small. And when we talk about this idea of this consistency chain, what can you do to be happier today? It has to be able to something you can do today. It has to be something you can start now.
Yeah.
Not
do you
tomorrow,
offer
not the
suggestions
weekend.
to people, or do you give them some? Because some people will be like, I don't know, I just don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And some
we
people
do.
start out like really defeated. I'm sure you've had some clients that are just like, melancholy, just nothing is going right, pessimistic, stuff like that. So
yeah, it's simple. I mean, I have a list that they can look over, but I really do want them to come up with their own thing. And it's as simple as, I'm going to call a friend once a day.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone and call somebody once a day.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to put a glass of water by my bed and drink that glass of water first thing in the morning if it's healthy. Simple habits like that, that they can add to their day as opposed to feeling restrictive, that they can successfully do every day. Because at the end of the day, I know for me with the happiness, I tried to do a gratitude practice and write my things every day, but some days I just woke up and it was gloomy outside and my mood wasn't feeling it. And so that behavior just I didn't have the motivation. What I find when you can do one little happy thing a day that takes very little time, makes you feel good when you have it done, is that the momentum starts to take over from motivation, because motivation doesn't last me on a gloomy day. Like I just don't have motivation that day.
Yeah.
So the momentum is what's going to carry me forward, surrounded by the community that's already encouraging me to stay on track.
Yeah.
And that's where over time I find it's easier to be naturally happy. Now I really do wake up and I'm like, oh, thank you. Thank you for this. Like I can think of things, but I remember those days in corporate where the alarm would go off and I'm like, like you ever like rolled out of bed where your feet are on the ground but your top half is still on the bed? You're like those kind of moments.
Yes.
I've had those too. And so it's taken a lot of practice. For me, it was very much getting an alignment of knowing my why, knowing my purpose, knowing what I was waking up for in the morning changed it for me. Yeah. And so having to figure that out when you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s is not easy.
Yeah.
Because you've got lots of layers of failure.
And a spouse.
That's right.
Lots of other people pulling at
aging
your
parents.
expectations. So doing that work takes a guide. It takes having somebody coach you through, and it takes that intentional work. And I think sometimes we just want the steps.
I agree with that. It does take, you need help and assistance. I was telling her earlier, I actually have a spiritual guru now, which is so cool because they teach you how to meditate and they just teach you how to find your center. But I sought him out. I literally prayed for him. And I think because I don't feel, I need somebody to hold me accountable. That's just how my brain works.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. I do better with deadlines.
Yeah.
Or when I have to answer to someone. I was going to ask, your typical client, because this sounds like a process, right? And it takes time to implement all these changes.
Sure.
So your typical client, how long are you working?
Yeah, so I have a program where I take a small group of ladies at a time, and it's a 12-week program.
That's
so
good.
we spend about 2 weeks on every one of those pillars. So
Yeah.
that gets you to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And the final 4 is maintenance.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of times maintenance is like that add-on you have to buy at the end that's super expensive. And I don't feel like that's the right way to go about it if
No.
you're trying to have long-term
Right.
goals. And so that 12-week is really like content-heavy learning process. You're doing some work for the 8 weeks. And then the last 4 is like, okay, it's got to be a habit now. Let's find those roadblocks that were going to come up anyways and address them while we're still together.
Which is
Right.
good, because that 4 weeks, because, it takes like 21 days to make a habit or
Right.
something. So you have just enough time.
Yeah, we're together almost 90 days.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the, I don't want to say success rate, but the completion rate where people who start finish?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So the ones that want to be the type A achiever, they're going to lose their motivation in that 12 weeks.
Okay.
And that's what's so funny to me. And that's why the consistency chain is such a big part of what we do. The ones that are open-minded and they're ready to learn and they really want to learn are very successful. But I do find that about 3 to 4 weeks or 3 to 5 weeks in, that's like that part where it's either going to be make or break.
Yeah.
You're either going to make this part of your life or you're going to make up excuses on why it's not going
Can't
to
do
work
it.
for you.
Uh-huh.
So the beauty of what I do is that the women that are starting, for example, we've got a group starting on Tuesday. There's 6 of them, a very small group,
Yeah.
so that I can be like, hey, I know you haven't checked in. Yeah, check and
Yeah.
be there walking beside them. I know their kids' names. I know that they're struggling with. We have that relationship where we can have that more intimate conversation, help them get over their hurdles, because there's some real emotional stuff
Yeah.
when it comes to getting to that making healthier choices for the long haul.
Yeah.
And so it's
And that's
definitely depends.
that's a thing. Like we had Cassandra, what's her last name?
Oh, Vitaka.
Vitaka. So we had her profession is a financial advisor, but she wrote a book called The Happiness Formula, and she talks about the EQ, emotional what is it? Quotient, which is like, your emotional maturity. And once you start getting into the minds of people and the barriers that they have to break through to make those changes, like it's huge.
Yeah.
And there's so many, like it blows my mind, because I am just fortunate enough to have a very tumultuous upbringing. So I had to face all this
Resiliency.
stuff very early. So I'm like, oh yeah, you just do that. Like it's fine. You just work through it, or you just get over it, or what, you know what I mean? Like, so I've been blessed and fortunate in that aspect, that I got to go through some really heavy things early, so that I was like, oh yeah, I mean, you just kind of get through your trauma and you just work through it or whatever. But once you start getting adults who have made it through their lives without facing this EQ, right? The emotional quotient. They didn't have to start doing that emotional work. That's where you find the hesitance and the resistance, right? Because, and I think I've let my certification lapse, but I was a certified professional trainer before. I probably started like when we started the podcast like 2 years ago. And that was the one thing that I found is it's not about the diet and the exercise. It's about getting into the mental piece especially with women. And I talked to one of my friends who was a physical therapist, or she's a physical therapist, or she was like an assistant or something at the time, but no, she was a physical therapist. And she was like, I couldn't even start. And I was like, well, why? And she was like, because the mental aspect of training is 100% different than just the physical. She's like, I could never put myself in that situation, because changing someone's habits enough to motivate them to go to the gym is your work. It's not just about showing them how to do squats.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Which is where the group fitness, I think, and that's the key of why I found for me group fitness is a better fit.
Yeah.
Because I would get so annoyed when I first started as a trainer. I was working at a corporate office by day, training at their gym at lunchtime in the evening. So I was kind of like doing that slash career, working my way out. And I would go train somebody at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd go down to the cafeteria, and there they were eating burger and fries. And I'm like, what why are you wasting my time and yours? Like it just, I get it. Burgers and fries are great in moderation, but like watching them continue to not make it a holistic.
Yes.
Right.
And they just, if I just give you this money and you teach me how to do this, then I'll hit my goals. It's not that simple.
Right.
You've got to be willing to show up and do the work. And so I actually do a discovery call before any client joins just to make sure they're in a right place. And there's times where the answer is, hey, you're not. And that's okay.
I'm probably not the right person for you right now.
And that is okay. Like, and I have things that I offer that are kind of more of a smaller scale that you can kind of work your way to, and you can join and just continue to absorb. You got to be ready to work when it's time to make those life-lasting changes.
Yeah.
And I find that you're asking about like my soulmate client type, like they're typically women that are pivoting somewhere in their life because that's when it happened to me. Like the pivot of my dad's cancer was like a wake-up call for me. I find women that kids are just now getting to the point where they're self-sufficient, or maybe they're going through a divorce, or maybe their kids are going to college and they're becoming empty nesters. Like there's usually a pivot,
some kind of transitional period.
Shook them and woke them up, and they're like, okay, now's time. Or maybe they've given everything, their time, their energy, their priorities to their family, and they finally are getting that opportunity to give themselves that time and priority, but they're not really even sure where to start. Those are the women that I typically work with. They are go-getters. They have it in them. They've just been putting that intention and focus elsewhere for a period of time at the expense of their own self. And they're
which we do
looking around
all the time. Put ourselves on back burners all the time.
All the time. And I find that the number one objection I end up having to overcome is that failure fear. Like fear of failing. If I finally start paying attention to me, and if I finally start doing the work and I don't see results, that means there's actually something wrong with me.
What if people laugh at me?
Yeah.
Like what if they stop being my friend because of it? What if we could kill ourselves with what ifs for real?
Right.
Yeah, so I find that overcoming that objection is usually the make or break of whether they're going to join the journey and see progress, or if they're going to stay in that safe, which is so ironic to me, safe and comfortable, but it's not comfortable
at all.
Everyone I talk to,
Right.
they're not comfortable in their clothes, but they're not uncomfortable enough.
Not even comfortable in their clothes.
That's not uncomfortable enough.
But they're not uncomfortable enough to get out of that, what they know to be a comfort zone.
Well,
and
it's also
I
like
get it. It's hard to be
misery loves
uncertain.
company, right? Like it's very easy to be apathetic and to just stay.
Yeah.
Well,
and if you look, like we mentioned earlier, if you look at somebody who's severely unhealthy, you look at the people they surround themselves with, likely those individuals are unhealthy as well. And so there's no accountability, even if it's an internal accountability, because we kind of measure ourselves by the people that we're around. And if everyone is also unhealthy, especially if you are maybe healthier than any of them and you're unhealthy, you're like, I'm winning.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that.
But you're not winning.
And you have those people, the naysayers, who'll be like, oh, like, who do you think you are to want to try to get better or be healthier?
Let me tell you, I am, it's only 12 days in, but I'm trying to stop drinking. I really don't want to drink alcohol. I know that it's poison. I know that it's bad for me. I know that it makes me fat. I know it makes me tired. Like, I just don't want to do it. But it's a habit, you know, it's a social habit. So when you go out,
or a COVID habit, which is what happened to me.
For sure. But I really, if I could give it up for the rest of my life, I would be so fine with that. And that's kind of the goal. But to what you're saying, people don't like it. It makes them uncomfortable. They don't like it. I'm like, this isn't about you.
The choice that you're making challenges their decisions, so they feel uncomfortable, as if that you're judging them because you've decided not to make this decision.
And
this
I'm like,
is just like,
this is truly not about you.
It's the same thing when
drink
people
all you want.
Yep, it's the same thing. People drinking, it's the same, eating bad food.
And I would add it's the same
cake.
thing with the gratitude and choosing to be happy.
Sure.
Because I remember kind of walking into corporate job being like, I'm not going to say anything negative. I'm not going to talk bad about anyone. I'm going to be positive, Pollyanna.
Yeah.
And within 5 minutes of being around people just whining and complaining about
It's
their jobs and their
contagious.
life, I'm like complaining alongside with them.
Misery loves
So that's not
company.
an actual action of like drinking
Sure.
or eating poorly or smoking, but it's a mindset.
Yeah.
And
So
if you're
true.
surrounding yourself around people that are just complainers and you know, blaming others and not taking accountability, you will absolutely do the same.
I agree with that. I have on my computer at work a sticky note that says block negativity so that I can be conscious and aware of somebody who comes into my office who's feeling heavy or their energy is heavy and they're just not in a good place or space, that I don't allow that to become contagious.
Consume
Because
you.
because the second they start complaining and, you know,
Yeah. And
they
don't-
get in that place, it is
there
you can
is
buy
room
into it.
for like venting to your
Yeah,
girlfriend
for sure,
or your
sure.
significant husband. Like, what's that Brene Brown quote about like in the arena?
In the arena,
It's not Brene Brown. It's like somebody
It is
else.
Brene. Oh,
she
it's
took his
it's
quote.
the president. Who is it? Thomas
Edison or it's something like that. But anyway,
Roosevelt.
Thank you. And it's talking about like if you're not in the arena getting your butt kicked every day,
that's
you do
right.
not have a right to tell me one way or the other.
That's right.
And to that. Going back to creating community, you have to know who the people in your arena are. Those are the ones that get to call you out when you're being negative. Those are the ones that get to encourage you when you're doing good, not the naysayers that are probably more like your office mates and things like that that don't necessarily have the inner workings and have permission into that part of your life.
Oh, I love that.
So there's not that you can't be negative because if you talk to some of my closest people, they'll tell you I prone to negativity. Yeah. It's my, if y'all are Enneagram, it's my Enneagram in me. Like,
what number are you?
I'm a 6. So on a good day, I'm the most loyal friend you will ever have in your entire life. On a bad day, I'm looking out for every single thing that could possibly go wrong to come up with a game plan of how to fix that thing.
Yeah,
That can lead me to be an ultimate worrier and even lead towards negativity if I'm not careful. And so I have to know that the people in my world know this about me. So when I can get on that little negative train, they understand it's just my worry. It's just my way of thinking through a potential issue to resolve, and they get me back on track right away without making me feel bad for having a more of a negative outlook on something, because that's my way of approaching life is like look for issues and resolve issues and make the best choice and move forward. So there's people know me and they know that about me. And that's an important piece of the puzzle is that community gets you. They understand where you're coming from so that when you do have a bad day, you don't have to just bottle it up and like trudge along, put it on your shoulders and somehow get over it. You go to the people that you've given permission to speak into your life and you speak out all the crap and move forward. So there's that balance of having that community around you. I don't want it to sound like you always have to be happy. You always have to be grateful. Like bad stuff doesn't happen. Like you were saying, like bad stuff does happen. Yeah. We have bad days, weeks, months. Like tough stuff is happening right now.
Years. Last year.
Right?
So the whole thing.
I'm not saying like let's not be so like la that it doesn't mean that bad things are happening and that we don't have tough days. But it's just that recognition of we're not going to stay in there. We're going to talk through it and we're going to find a community that's going to encourage us to continue trying to make positive choices.
Yeah. I think that is why I am such a challenging person to be around sometimes is I am the opposite of that. I am perpetually just happy, mostly positive, mostly optimistic.
Call it a woo personality.
Yeah. And exactly. And it can be a lot for somebody who's not like that. My husband and I, Jordan Peterson has you and Matt ought to take this. He has it's a personality assessment, but what it does is it'll test you, it'll test your spouse, and then it'll bring it together and then spit out this is where your challenges could be. Oh. So Brad, my husband, has a tendency to be a little bit negative, and he scored, it's a 0 to 100. He scored on the, we'll call it the negativity scale. That's not what it's called, but we're going to call it that. He scored like a 98. Guess what my score was?
A 1.
0.
Wow. You don't even have any of it.
0.
Yeah, you would definitely
your
be.
Challenges are.
That's good to know about you because then I would know, okay, she's just being her.
That's me. I'm the eternal optimist too.
Oh, that's so jealous of those personality types.
Well, but it's annoying if you're not like that. It's a lot. And I think that's why
it's annoying to our spouses because they're not like that at all.
Yeah. And my husband just thinks I have my head in the sand and I'm like, no, I'm just living my best life.
He thinks he's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
well,
I'm
like perfect for being podcast host because you are naturally going to inspire people.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I can see how that would be a challenge to be around somebody like that because you're like, that is not 90% of the population's reality.
Well, and not only that, but and not to derail the conversation, but how do you feel like in leadership that has affected your management ability, like managing people who are not always positive? Like
it's a drain. It's an immediate drain, which is why I have blocked negativity. And it's not that I don't want people to come to me and share. I do, and I have a very, very open door policy, and I actually can absorb because my positivity quotient, whatever you want to call it, is so high, I can take a lot of negativity before it starts to get me down. Yeah. So I think that helps me in leadership because people can bring their shit to me. Yeah. And I can handle a lot until I can't. Right. And that's the challenge is, sometimes when it's day in and day out and it's the same complainer constantly and you're like,
at what point do you reach your level?
Are you giving me like an hours question here, a day's question? Like, what do you mean? Like,
No, I'm saying just in general. Like that's it's a rhetorical question. I just mean at what point do you reach a level in managing people who don't share the same outlook? Because that's what I have too. And in my position now, I do feel as if my management and leadership is, expecting me to grow into that type of role. So, and that's something that I'm already practicing because, you do the job before you get the job.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But I listen to everyone and taking things into consideration and listening to all sides, but also trying to maintain a positive spin on everything. Like, just for an example, we were talking about the whole Meghan Markle, Prince Harry thing, and a lot of people feel as if they are really entitled and that they're royal brats and they're complaining. And I'm like, we don't know their story.
Yeah.
Like what may feel like a very rich prison to them may seem like pleasure to you, but we just don't know, and just like making
somebody judging your $5-6 coffee is probably feeling the same way about your
right.
Yes.
Like, how nice and your life is compared to theirs.
And at the end of the day, we just don't know their story. And I think that even just saying things like that and keeping an open mind and having that kind of dialogue with people in my office, I know personally, has really like cut the tension, because it's like we don't know their story, and and we're all entitled to our own opinions, but like, how much of an energy suck is that for you to just think that way about somebody else you don't even know? Like, why are we doing that?
You are entitled to an opinion.
You're totally allowed to have it, but
let's
keep things in perspective here,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
This is interesting that you say this too, because my mom very well.
I do.
And
Vicky,
happy houred with her yesterday.
Yeah,
and she's my real estate agent now.
Yeah. My mom and I have always had a very good relationship, tense to some degree because I'm, type A and, so we just operate differently. But she is more, I would say, like you a little bit. And so I would think that is our biggest communication, or our biggest struggle is communication. She thinks that I'm living in la la land and I don't deal with anything. And I'm like, no, I'm dealing with it all. It just doesn't, I'm fine. Like, I just don't get impacted by the little things. They just don't bother me.
Yeah, but another big piece of all this, to be able to do that, as well as even for me, somebody that struggles with positivity, and just, you have to have ways to get rid of all that negativity that's coming through you through the day. So my best friend works in healthcare, and this has been a year for her. She feels like she's going to battle every day.
Every day.
And
she's suiting up for war.
Getting to that point where she's burnt out, as so many people are. And this last couple of weeks with her counselor, she's been having to talk about, like, how do you renew?
So
that's why I call it renew your mind. Like, how do you renew? Like, you can't just continue to take it on your shoulders, no matter how positive you are.
That's right.
Yes. You have to have built-in environment triggers that are going to help you reset, refill, refuel. And I know as women, as moms, I see it all the time. Like, they do not refill. They just give until there's nothing left. And then of course you're going to eat that sleeve of Thin Mint cookies. Like, of course,
in 30 seconds,
you're going to choose
I can plow
Netflix
right through them
over going for a walk. I mean, of course you have literally nothing left.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to renew? And that's a very unique individualistic question, and it's hard to figure it out. And I know for me, if I'm go, I get like 30 minutes. I'm like, what should I do? How do I renew? I don't even know. Let me just scroll my phone. And then, then 30 minutes is over.
Instagram. That
is not renewing your mind at all.
At all.
So it's like, how do you have these ideas? Okay, like for example, my best friend with healthcare, she might be told she's not going in today, and then all of a sudden she has an 8-hour day like that.
Oh, wow.
Because just she
That'll
never
mess
knows.
with you.
So she gets a day off, and she wasn't expecting it, so she sits on her couch all day.
Yeah.
So we talk about, like, how do you know? Okay, you don't know when you're going to get that time, but when you do get that time, what is something that you can do that doesn't rely on anybody else, that can refuel your tank, that can make you feel renewed again? So whether it's taking that bubble bath, or you have the book on your bookshelf that you're going to read, or you're going to go to a coffee shop and just sit by yourself and just have that time. Like, find those things that you can do that when you do get a little time to you can reinvest in yourself, because you will scroll your phone every time. You'll land on Netflix every time if you don't have some sort of idea in your head of what it takes to renew your mind.
Well, and I think, too, staying away from, we talk about this all the time, staying away from the news and you just negative content. Like, I really think that impacts your brain. I think everyone should have some sort of way of feeding their minds positive, whether it's affirmations that you wrote yourself, whether it's a book that you're reading, whether it's a podcast you're listening to. You need to start your day if you can, and you have the flexibility like we do when we're getting ready for work.
Yeah.
We usually have a book or a podcast or something going that is positive, uplifting. Like I don't
Inspirational.
I don't listen to business books in the morning ever.
Yeah.
I have usually 2 or 3 books going at any time on my Audible account. I've got the motivational, inspirational book for the
Self-discovery
morning.
book. Yeah.
Yep. And then usually business on the way home because that's where my head is. And then I've got the weekend stuff. So
The fun stuff.
yeah. And I just think that that's so key when you're really learning how to, how did you put it? Your first pillar.
Oh, renew your mind.
Renew your mind.
Yeah.
Get away from this stuff that has a tendency to bring you down.
Yeah, it's creating that environment.
Yeah.
We don't realize, like you just said, how much your environment is impacting it. So we beat ourselves up thinking we're failing at this.
Right.
But everything around us is creating that failure. You think about
Exactly
the food industry and, how the muffin your grandmother ate now has 30% more calories today.
Yeah.
How is that our fault?
And
Yeah,
47
right.
more ingredients. Let's be real.
Exactly.
For real,
And
but that's
most of them
why.
are genetically modified.
Yeah, and that were chemically combined to make you more addicted
to
to,
make you
said
crave
muffin.
it.
Exactly.
So that's an environment factor that we need to own and be aware of and not beat ourselves up over about, but just be aware of it.
That's right.
And that's kind of what we try to help people see so that they'll release the reins of like feeling like it's their
Failed.
fault. It's their fault.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than just you. It's the environment around you. Can't change all that. So how do we work into it? How do we be aware of it? How do we be more mindful of it? How do we set ourselves up to succeed with the environment that we're living in where there's less movement throughout your day? You're sitting at your desk more. There's more calories in every meal. Everything's been supersized.
Yeah.
Like how do we find those boundaries that we can live a nice, healthy, happy, balanced life?
Right.
But also not feel like we're constantly just white knuckling our way through a weight loss goal.
Yeah. How do you, what advice do you give somebody who is living with somebody maybe that it's toxic or it's not healthy and you can see they're not in a place where they're going to leave, which is probably the right thing to do, but that's just their environment. What advice do you give to women like that?
I think
Or people.
You control what you can control. And so for
Control
me,
your controllables.
control your controllables. That sounds very businesslike. So what it means is meaning you have a good group of friends, a good community around you, whether that's in your house or not. You can find that community around you. And then you have little small things throughout your day that bring you joy. You have to find those small things. And finding joy doesn't revolve around another person.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for saying that.
100%.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been there, done that when it comes to good relationships, bad relationships, everything in between. And it's so much easier to be like, well, I'm this way because of this person.
Right.
And yes, to a certain extent, your partner is one of your 5 people that we
That's
talked
right.
about, and it is going to make an impact. But that means there's 4 other people
Yeah. Who are they?
that could feed into you, and who are they?
But also yourself.
Yes.
It's just like Will Smith says. He's like, I'm not responsible
Love
for
him.
for my wife's happiness. She's responsible
Yes.
for her happiness. Now, am I here to help to contribute to the happiness? Absolutely. But she has to be happy first. She has to come to the
Yes.
table and be happy.
That's right. I think that is, if everybody on the planet could learn one thing in my mind,
Own your.
that would be it. It would be like, it is
Thank you.
not your spouse's job to fulfill you. It is not your
And
spouse's
talk about
job.
pressure.
Right?
Like, that's a lot of pressure,
It
bro.
is your job
gotta fulfill
to
you?
fulfill yourself so that you then can be a good partner for them.
Yes.
And they can,
Yeah.
obviously you want to be with somebody that you're having fun with and life is, and doing life with them is enjoyable.
Right.
But it's not their job to make your life enjoyable.
No.
And then you get into the whole opposite personalities. So,
Yes.
like, you're probably doing everything you think is right to make your partner happy, and they're not registering that
That's
at
exactly
behavior at
right.
all.
Love
'Cause
languages
You
and
get into
everything.
that,
The
so
difference.
you cannot rely
That
on
is so true.
Not even
like
close.
that person to fulfill you for sure.
Yeah, I learned that. I think I was probably around 30 years old when I learned that. Like, if I'm going to truly be happy in life, I have to make myself happy. And hopefully by doing that, that will make people around me happy.
Yeah.
Versus looking for other people
To make you
feed
happy.
me.
It's not going to
Yeah,
work. Yeah.
right.
Extreme ownership.
For sure.
Yeah.
So how are you so you're moving somewhere.
Yeah.
Don't know where yet.
Don't know where.
Love it.
So how are you, is this all virtual?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the 12-week coaching program, a Design Life project, it's Life with a Y. You can find it on Facebook or Instagram. So you can follow the journey and be part of that community there. And then the 12-week coaching program is an evergreen program, which means it's kind of, you can start at almost any point in time and be on week 1 when somebody else is on week 7.
Okay.
And so you can join that journey when you're ready. I always ask that they have a discovery call with me to make sure that the timing is right and it's a good fit and that you're ready for that accountability and to walk that journey. And so that is the best way to get involved. And this is, for me, to be able to work virtually has been a goal I've had for a really long time. I said consulting life, if you remember, like, if you've ever hired a consultant, they have to be the first one there and the last one out, whether or not they've done their work, finished their work or not, right? So I remember days where I'm like, I literally have done everything that's on my list to do. So I'm just going to sit here and do someone else's work because I can't leave until boss man leaves. And so being my own boss has always been a goal of mine so that I can have that time and location freedom. So this goal of, I don't know where I'm going to be working from in 4 weeks whenever this podcast launches. Who knows where I will be? Yeah. But that's kind of a fun thing is that
How
you
liberating.
can.
Yes, I am so jelly. I just love that.
Yeah, it's exciting and nerve-wracking and just I have no idea. Like I just don't even know the words to use to express what's happening because it's a mix of
unknown. Emotions, right? I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, bittersweet because there's part of you that's like mourning the loss of the life you've built here.
Right.
But then how invigorating and exciting to go and do something so new.
Imagine the life that you're creating.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I know my first stop. My God willing, my grandmother turns 99 in about a month, and she lives in Toronto.
Good genes, man.
Yeah. I know, right? So she's our matriarch, and so I hope to get up there and spend some time in Toronto. The country itself in Canada is very shut down right now, and I'm a Canadian passport holder, so it's a little easier for me to get there, but there will be a lot of restrictions involved. So I'm not
Will you have to quarantine
quite sure.
When you get there?
It's changing right now. They have you must take a COVID test when you get to the border crossing, and then stay in a hotel for 3 days until your results come back.
Okay.
So
that's not that bad.
Yeah, it's actually better than it was the last time I went. There was a strict 2-week quarantine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, a girl that I follow on social media, she lives in Florida, but her boyfriend lives in Canada.
Oh, that's about as opposite when it comes to COVID.
Wow,
rules. I need to talk to her about what her transportation is like.
But I follow her, and she's like, "Yep, I'm in Canada now. I came to see Jeff, and I have to quarantine for 14 days, so we're not leaving the house."
Yeah, I went. Wow. I can't remember now what month it was. Was it August? I went up there, and I have to quarantine for the 14 days. But I left in. I think I was there for 6, and then I just crossed the border back. And they're fine to let you go, but if you're there, you have to do your 14-day quarantine.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow. So we're at our hour, I believe.
Dang, that was so fast.
So fast. So fast.
Wow.
Tell us how we find you or how people find
Sure.
you.
Yeah, so Design Life Project, Life with a Y, is where you'll find me on Facebook, and then you can find me by my name on Instagram. So it's Catherine Pompeo, first and last name.
Cool.
Thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah,
I'm glad to meet you in person.
I know, finally, right? And before we completely conclude, I used to ask this question a long time ago, and then I kind of stopped. If you could go back and give your younger self advice, I know it's a little bit of a cliche, but it's, I think, impactful for people who are listening. What advice would you give yourself?
Yeah.
Your 20-year-old self, let's say.
Do what makes you happy, not what society expects of you.
Yeah, that's a good one.
100%.
I call those years my dark ages, the years that I spent doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing to be happy. When I actually knew in my gut.
How many people say that too?
What to do.
They're like, I was completely unfulfilled, but I had everything that society said was going to make me happy.
Yeah.
You know, I think because I started my life out as a teen mom, that there was this expectation of like prove to everyone that you're not an F up.
You're the exception.
Well,
you're not the statistic.
Well, right. But you feel like such a screw up, right?
Yeah.
And so you literally live every moment to prove to everyone that you're not that.
Yeah.
And it took me so long to get to the point that I'm like, well, maybe I am that. I don't even care. I'm just doing life.
The question I can't find the answer to is if I ever have kids, will I tell them to do what you love or to get stable, financially successful and then pursue it? Because I think even though that I followed society's expectations of me for the first decade of my career, it built a really good foundation that allowed me then to pursue my passion.
I agree with that for myself.
And would
as well.
I have been able to do this in my 20s successfully?
I
don't know.
Well, and
so that's my real I don't know answer.
Did you have the life training and the skills that corporate America taught you to then establish this foundation that you have now?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would 100%
Yeah, so I'm
agree
so
with
thankful
that.
for those dark ages because I do think it gave me the skills to be able to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But at the
Paying
same
our
time,
dues. I mean, there's
man, I wish
something
I
to
didn't
be
have to
said
pay
for
those
that.
dues.
They were expensive dues, okay? Very emotionally expensive dues.
I love it. Well, we wish you well.
Thank you.
We're so excited for you.
Yeah, can't wait to follow your journey.
Yay.
Yeah, and actually,
exciting.
let's reconnect in like 6 months. I don't love doing Zoom, but let's
can
do
do 'em.
it.
Yeah.
Let's do
I
it.
think I'll be back in Texas in about 6 months. So
You should look
next
us-
time I'm back, I'll look y'all
Yeah,
up.
do
Yes.
because I know people are going to want to know what's happening.
We promise we'll
Yeah.
reply to the email.
Do you have a lot of social media like content that you put out so people can follow that
definitely.
journey?
Please jump on and follow the social media. I'm on there every day.
Okay,
Awesome.
cool. You want to
Plug us,
everybody?
yeah. You can find us on YouTube under Big Girl Pants Podcast. We would love it if you watched and subscribe.
Please.
You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, Spotify. And then at our website, www.biggirlpantspod.com.
Yay. And it's okay if you give us 5 stars.
It's not okay, it's required.
It's
Thanks.
required. Thanks, bye.
Bye.